Hello, my friend. I don't know if you feel like I do, but for the past few months, I've been feeling as if I am in a washing machine cycle and I've got all this sud coming out of my mouth. It is really a time of great changes. We can see that Mother Earth, our beloved Mother Earth, is suffering, and we can see so many of our brothers and sisters, animals, plants. There's a lot of upheaval, and we know that upheaval brings change. So I am in front of a big decision that I need to be making in my life. I feel it's time to move on and make changes yet again for another time. And to many people around me might be seen as a step backwards because it seems as if I'm returning to a geographical position that I was before. But for me, sincerely, I feel that it's a step forward and I'm starting to feel good about it. A few days ago, though, I was feeling a little bit uneasy and, what are people going to think? And what I do is I try to be open as much as possible from messages that might appear in my life, messages from my guides, from, I don't know, the universe, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But messages that feel really close to who I truly am and what I really need to be doing. So I was drinking a yogi tea and I noticed the little label on the yogi tea said, "Forgive your past." I just read it and thought, oh, I left it aside. Next morning, I drink another yogi tea and there was a sequel to this message. It said, "Forgive your past and make room for your future." I was shocked. I thought, oh, wow, this is like, okay, this is a sequel. It's definitely something that I need to be thinking about. This is not by chance. So what we often the trap that we fall into very often is the trap of feeling guilty and regretting decisions that we make. And there's nothing worse to be carrying this regret. Some people carry it for 30, 40 years. The burden of this is huge. We lose a lot of energy by going backwards into the past and not allowing space for the future. So I was having a conversation with somebody I love, and they told me, "Alexia, you've made a number of mistakes in your life. Do you know that?" And I said, "Well, that it took me by surprise." But I said, "Well, no, I haven't, because this is a philosophy I have adopted for many years now, that I make no mistakes. No decision is a mistaken decision." And he said, "Yes, you have. You married the wrong man." And this was like 20 years ago, okay? And I said, "No, I didn't. I didn't marry the wrong man." "Oh, yes, you did. You divorced him." "Yes, but I had a beautiful child from this man." And my co-speaker said, "Yes, but you could have had a beautiful child with anybody else, another man maybe, a better choice." And I said, "No, I wouldn't have had this specific child, this unique child, if I've had a relationship with a different man. And my daughter is the biggest gift I've had in this lifetime so far. So for me, there was no mistake there, and I don't make mistakes. And if we take our decisions so seriously, we actually forget something fundamental. that life is a game. We are playing the game of life. Because when we don't play life as a game and we take it very seriously, then we forget that we are impermanent, that we are in passing here. Who guarantees that I will wake up the next morning? There's no guarantee. There's only an average, a statistic which says that according to your age, you still have some years to live. But there's no guarantee for that. And impermanence is something that helps us engage in life in a different way. It helps us become more present. Don't forget that the past is history, the future is a mystery. The only thing we have is the present moment, and that is a gift, that is a present. That's why it's called present. When I was in Bali back in September with our teacher Ernesto Ortiz, who is 74 years old, and he's got more liveliness than all of us put together. He used to remind us this, and he would say, walk into life, engage with life exactly like a child would. A child goes out on the street and plays. A child hasn't got in their mind when the future meal and if it's going to come and where it's going to come from. A child just plays. A child is simply in the moment. Scientists have shown on the issue of decision that our Western civilization suffers from decision fatigue. That is why at the end of the night, we're so tired because we've got to make yet another decision. You know, what time shall I go to sleep, or what pajamas shall I wear, or what film, Netflix I'm going to look at tonight. We've made already 35,000 decisions. The flip side of this finding is, however, if you think of it, that we actually have 35,000 opportunities to make our next moment, to create our next moment. So, for example, and what I advise people when it's for them to start becoming more conscious of whether they're going to go left or right and all these opportunities that we have during our days. One way of doing this and start practicing to be more mindful is by mindful eating practices. So, for example, you open the fridge late at night and you are absolutely famished and you just pick up the cheese or pick up whatever you see in front of you. Why? Why do we do this? Can we start helping ourselves by making a quick question before we put our hand and grab that food? Alexia, are you thirsty at the moment? Maybe you're thirsty and not really hungry. Or how could I give myself something that will nourish me rather than something that will punish me, punish my body, punish my next day? Because, for example, I've noticed that when I eat something sugary, especially late at night, then the next morning I wake up really sluggish. So we do have these opportunities to make choices, and it's a matter of training our monkey mind, which keeps hijacking our ability to be present. Just train it gradually to start realizing that we can actually make choices which are more helpful for the future, but also choices that are more playful, that open up a bigger sphere of opportunity when we are free of all our guilt and regrets and our phobias of what will happen in the future. So I want to give you a tool that I often use in my sessions with clients, and also when I train executives in companies, that helps decision making. It helps not to give you necessarily a correct answer according to everybody else around us, but an answer, a decision that is closer to our own benefit, our own well being. Because the emotions that we feel when we've done a step forward, when we've made a decision, shapes the way that we go about in life. So I think it's called the Cartesian model, and it's 4 questions. The answers to these questions allow us to look at a situation from more than one viewpoints. Because if you look at the situation only from a viewpoint of an expert, for example, or your mother or your father or your spouse or somebody that you consider that has a wise, good opinion, then you do not allow yourself the opportunity to see the situation from many different viewpoints, and mostly from viewpoints that are related to how you feel in the scenarios of, the 4 scenarios that come out of these 4 questions. So, question number 1 is, what would happen if I did this, or if I said this? Question number 2 is, what wouldn't happen if I did this or said this? Question number 3 is, what would happen if I didn't do this or didn't say this? And question number 4, which is a really mind twister, what wouldn't happen if I didn't do this or if I didn't say this? So try and answer these questions sincerely in a moment where you are more relaxed without any outside noises or distractions, and try not to take too long so that you connect to your subconscious mind, you connect to the guide inside of you. In other words, try and be as spontaneous in your answer as possible. And it's always good to make a little note of your answers, because you will have a much better understanding if it's on paper. And I'm sure that you will be surprised with the effectiveness of this method, because this method allows you to come closer to what's right for you. And when we make decisions based on what's right for us, as long as we're not we're not doing something that will harm others or Mother Earth or plants or animals, then we start becoming and living life from a place of freedom. We start being more in the flow of life, more like water would be. And we don't resist situations, we don't resist our circumstances. And then that's when we start really enjoying ourselves and being in life rather than doing life, being childlike rather than just putting on this persona that we are serious, we are responsible. Because at the end of the day, being responsible, the word responsible really means being able to respond. And from our example, others will follow. So, as you know, we don't we do not teach others through our words. We teach others with our actions, with our own example. That's it. I bid you goodbye and have many blessings. Alexia.